Welcome to United We Spay, the show dedicated to promoting affordable spay-neuter services nationwide. Each episode delves into the heart of the movement, sharing inspiring stories and driving positive change. Our goal is to raise awareness, educate, and empower, addressing overpopulation's root causes to ensure every animal has a chance for a better life. Hosted by Stacy LeBaron and the United Spay Alliance team, we're on a mission to change lives. Fed up with the fixation on symptoms in the animal welfare conversation, it's time to change the narrative. Join us on United We Spay, where we make a difference by spreading knowledge and building a compassionate world for animals. Let's put prevention first and spotlight spay-neuter in the animal welfare space.
You're listening to United We Spay, a podcast from United Spay Alliance. United Spay Alliance works to promote accessible, affordable, and timely spay-neuter services because an ounce of prevention today can prevent untold suffering tomorrow. Spay-neuter. It's public health for pets. I am Stacy LeBaron, United Spay Alliance board member and host of the show. Today is our first episode of United We Spay, and we are talking with Esther Mechler, the founder of United We Spay. Welcome to the show, Esther.
Thank you, Stacy. Thanks for having us.
So this is our first show. Many people are going to start out listening to podcasts at episode number 1. So here they are tuning in. Why do we need a podcast for United Spay Alliance?
Well, to introduce it. We work so quietly behind the scenes that we haven't been recognized. I think we're not a household name at this point. So we really want to let people know who we are and why we're here. So today we'll share how it started, what it is, and how you can be involved as a volunteer or supporter and be part of the solution.
Yes. And I love the fact that as a podcast, folks have the opportunity to tune in. Anybody has access to this information. It's a free world, free information. And that is why I'm just such an incredible believer of the podcast. You know, so how did you, Esther, get involved with really becoming such an advocate of spay-neuter? How did you get into this?
Well, it started in a rundown shelter in an urban area. Bridgeport, Connecticut, to be exact. There were just way too many cats and dogs, and it broke my heart. I remember going in and seeing this beautiful cat. I called him Buddha because he was so serene. He was a black and white kitty, probably 15 pounds, and he sat there with this serene look on his face. And he just, I just felt this cat really needs a home, and he'd make a great pet. So I asked the people running the shelter if they would hold this cat for me for a week or so. I was sure I could find him a home. And the week went by and nobody. I mean, we've been working with all my heart. I could not find a place for this kitty. So I came back and the kitty was already gone and he did not have a home. So he was gone. There was another incident where there was a cat. I had gone in and there was some garbage bags on the floor. And one of the bags started to move. And I said, well, what's that? And then they opened it for me and it was an orange cat who was just skin and bones. And once again, I did try to see what I could do. And this time I did succeed. We found a young couple and they were just great. And this cat ended up with a good home. It was just a lot of good luck. And then there were a couple of times where, there were cats that we had one that we called Sweet Nelson, who was just a mess. And I took him home over Christmas several years ago, probably 20 years ago now. And he became part of the family. But, I realized how difficult it is to find homes for cats, especially because there's so many of them. And that prevention of this surplus of cats is the only answer. So I started with one vet. It was my vet, Dr. Arnold Brown in Connecticut. And gradually, what he would do was he would give a 50% off discount for people that I referred. This was really the start of Spay USA. We started with the one vet, and then it gradually grew to 8,000 vets, part of a network of vets who gave a discount to people who couldn't afford the surgery for their pets or strays. And the number of shelter intakes across the country began to go down steadily from 12 million euthanasias a year in 1990 to 3 million a year in 2010, which was an 80% drop. And that was a huge drop for that amount of time. And the drop was pretty much attributable to spay-neuter. It was not just our referrals. It was also people talking to each other. There were conferences. There were grants. things just perked up around 1990, and it was a very good time for spay neuter. It was a good time for the number of shelter intakes. So that's kind of the story of how I got into it.
So, how was the United Spay Alliance founded? I mean, you were part of Spay USA. So what changed or what is different between, United Spay Alliance and how was it founded?
Okay, I'm going to start with, I was running this spay referral program from a single office, but it became clear how many across this country. It's a big country. And across the country, clinics were opening, closing, programs were starting, finishing. And I began to realize that we would have a much better picture of current programs and clinics if we organized state by state. This is a big country. Again, it's 330 million people. There was such a need. We really needed a leader in each state. And these state leaders would be aware of the situation in their state, in their area. And these leaders could share their problems and the solutions that they found locally. And to describe what's different, I think a lot of programs are like, if you can visualize a triangle or a pyramid, you've got a person at the top or an office at the top, and then everybody kind of goes through that one person. Or what we have with United Spay Alliance is more like a bicycle wheel with its spokes. So you'll have 50 spokes. You have people around the country that know what's going on in their backyard, and they can help people better than I can from my home base. So that's sort of how it's structured and why it was structured that way and how it came about, I think. We started this alliance in 2015, and I'm happy to say that around 2020, Community Cats Podcast joined with us to strengthen our efforts. And a lot has happened since that joining of efforts. Today, 35 states are organized. They have a leader. They have an updated list. It's always current. And there's more to than that. We now have quarterly state leader meetings. We have an annual online conference. We have twice monthly newsletters. And we have benefits for the states who belong. And that's just up till now. In the coming year, in 2024, we will have monthly podcasts thanks to Community Cat Podcast Experience, and we will be giving grants to qualified nonprofits in 2024. That was something we weren't able to do in the past. So,
wow. Yes. That is a lot of stuff going on, a lot of activities, some incredible work going on. And I've really enjoyed being part of the re-energizing of United Spay Alliance. And it's just been really tremendous to see coming together, meeting new people, reconnecting with old friends. It's been so wonderful. But we talked about clinics, and when you use the word clinic, you were talking about nonprofit clinics or for-profit, private practice veterinarians. And what about there's a whole concept around Feline Fix by 5. And that's a second campaign that's become a program of the United Spay Alliance. And how does that fall in the work with United Spay Alliance?
Yeah, so that was something that also had its roots in the years prior to the founding of United Spay Alliance, because, as you know, the shelters were even more full back in the late 90s and early 2000s. They were even more full than they are now. And it sort of came to our attention that the veterinarians, the common practice was that they were telling people to wait until 6 months or even later to spay cats. And we sort of started putting two and two together and said, the cats are in heat by 4 months and they're pregnant, they're having litters, that they fill the shelters. So we thought, why not prevent those litters? These shelters would be able to balance the number of kittens with good homes instead of being overwhelmed. And as for the male cats, they often lose their homes if they start spraying and marking. So why not neuter them before they start to spray, around 5 months? So it just came to us that the solution for a lot of the mess was really just to spay or neuter them around 20 weeks or 5 months. Now, we said by 5 months, so that people would give us a hard time with that and said, well, why don't you tell people to spay them by 4 months? Well, actually, if you say by 5 months, that is 4 months, and it's 3 months, and it's 2 months. So the idea is to get them before the hormones start to flow, and that definitely means by 5 months. So Joan Miller, who was just terrific, was the president of the Cat Fanciers Association. She and I worked closely together. And what we did around 2015, we planned a meeting organizing a task force to convene at the January 26th NAVC, North American Vet Conference in Orlando. And Joan knew everybody, and she invited a dozen highly respected, experienced veterinarians to this meeting. And that took place on one afternoon between 1 and 4 p.m. And at the end of that very productive afternoon, the group agreed on 5 points. And those 5 points can be found on our website at fixby5.org. Basically, it said that the best practice going forward will be for veterinarians to spay or neuter kitties by the age of 5 months. Now, these folks that were sitting around that table were not officially there to speak for their organizations. They were only there to kind of unofficially represent them and to bring their point of view to our attention. So it took 18 more months, but by June of 2017, I still remember the day, all of the major national vet associations had formally endorsed the findings of the task force. So that was a major day because that meant that, at least on the books, it is now okay. It's the best possible practice to spay or neuter kitties by 5 months. And that has the potential to change everything, because if enough people spay them by 5 months, there won't be unwanted litters. They won't be spraying the house anymore and lose their homes. So but I remember that Joan and I both felt so amazed that it was a 3-hour work meeting, but this very important piece of thinking, and it was done. I mean, people had talked about it, they agreed upon it, it was unanimous. And so certainly the scaffolding, the underpinnings are there now for all the vets to spay by 20 weeks. And if enough of them do it, our problem will pretty much be solved as far as number of homeless cats is concerned. It should go way, way down. We still have a ways to go. Now, Chase's list, they're the ones who have like National Pumpkin Day and all the formal holidays. They have officially, for the last 5 years, officially named February as Feline Fix by 5 months. So a lot of F's. And we celebrate this. And we hope that your listeners will do so with us. Celebrating Fix by 5 months is a great way to have an impact on the number of litters born or not. And so to help improve the lives of countless cats. There is really no easier or more effective way to help cats. Honestly, I'll repeat that. There is no easier or more effective way to help. We still need to mainstream this idea, however. It would end the overpopulation of cats, but only if more veterinarians adopt it as their recommended way for all cat parents. So what I'm saying is that if you're listening to this podcast, talk to your vet, see if he or she is spaying by 5 months. Talk to other people's vets, ask other people who talk to their vets. See if you can get to the State Vet Association, get them to adopt this idea. The thing that's holding us back now is just that not all the vets or not most of the vets are doing Fix by 5. We need to grow that list. That's one of our missions and goals with United Spay Alliance.
Yeah, and everyone can be part of that campaign,
yes,
as you suggested. So that is something that anyone and everyone, you don't have to be involved with an organization. You can advocate for Feline Fix by 5 with all your local veterinarians out there and really encourage them to embrace the idea and the concept. And there's many ways on the website to access information that you can share with others. We've talked about Feline Fix by 5. We've talked about state leaders, a lot of different other avenues that United Spay Alliance has been working on. But I'm going to take it up a level here and sort of talk about theoretical. You've often said, Esther, you've said this to me many times, that spaying and neutering your cats and dogs, it's like public health for pets. What does that really mean?
Yeah, I picked up this idea back in Bridgeport, the same place where I started the whole thing with the shelter, and there were plenty of cats on the street. In Bridgeport, we were trying to figure out what to do about all these cats who were hungry, they were multiplying, they were dying on the streets, they were lying in the gutters. And by the way, this was before TNR was a known way to handle the problems. Back then, I still remember there were several dear souls that I knew paying for the spay-neuter of all these homeless cats out of their own pocket. And some of them even lost their homes because they had mortgaged them to pay for the surgeries. And this was so wrong. This was so unfair to these people. They were the ones who cared, and then they were the ones who paid, and they lost their own homes sometimes because they were paying. So I decided to ask public health officials in Bridgeport and nearby New Haven about this issue. What about this problem? And they were great. They explained to me that public health is the prevention of problems. I'll go back over that. Public health is the prevention of problems. always less pricey and more effective than waiting for the problems to happen and then running around in a panic trying to solve a mess. And that bottom line, the simple way to say that is be proactive instead of reactive. And I can't tell you how upsetting it is to see people just gloss over this idea of early spay or TNR, only to find that their shelters are overwhelmed. And there are things that can be done to prevent it. So again, public health is the prevention of problems. The problem of too many cats or dogs does involve public health and public safety. It is easy to prevent the litters through spay-neuter, but the cost is too high for the population that's dealing with it. Whether it's in the inner city or in rural areas, we have to find a way to help the people that are trying to help cats. And the public health department in Bridgeport helped us to get a really decent community grant to start the process. And for many years, we worked with public health officials, both there and nationally, to mainstream what later came to be called TNVR. We used to call it TNR. The public health folks like to stick the letter V in there. Trap, neuter, vaccinate, and release. Or as I like even better, trap, neuter, vaccinate, release, and maintain. I've always felt that it's important to have someone looking out for these cats if they're out there. They've just had surgery. They need care. They need someone watching them. They need someone feeding them and making sure that they're okay. And that's, of course, your mainstay, Stacy, is the community cats. So it's been worked out really well working together on this, since I think the cats are probably the biggest problem with domestic animals that we have, the numbers of cats, I should say.
Yeah, at this point in time, I would say a lot of our conversations do revolve around cat overpopulation. And I've always been one to say it all starts with Adam and Eve. They're the ones that have started the process. And, if we don't get Adam and Eve spayed or neutered, then we're going to have a big problem down the road. So it's very important that we all get involved, get engaged, and really be proactive, ensuring that the community's cats are spayed and neutered. And that will really help improve the quality of lives of the cats in our communities too. Once a cat has a rabies vaccination, and as well as a dog, rabies vaccination, spay, neuter, it elevates their status just by the sheer fact that they've had veterinary work done on them. They have this investment in them. The community inevitably responds differently to those animals. Someone who's been taking care of a cat in the backyard, once a cat gets spayed, neutered, rabies vaccine, ear tipped, they may end up bringing that cat in. Situation with the dogs and behavior. Sheltering for dogs is extremely stressful. The last thing we want to do is have dogs in shelters. We can have spay, neuter, reduce the number of dogs that we have, keeping the number of dogs out of shelters, and especially potentially larger dogs that really don't do well in shelters. We want to make sure that we've got the necessary spay neuter resources out there and programs out there for our clinics that are out there, the state leaders. Esther, I really want to thank you so much for taking the time. If people are interested in finding out more about United Spay Alliance, how would they do that?
Well, the easiest thing is to go to unitedspayalliance.org, and we have a contact page there. There's a form you can fill out, and I think we've been pretty good about getting back to people. Of course, we hope you'll want to help in some way, both monetarily and with helping us to find more participating vets and promoting Fix by 5. There's lots of ways that you can get involved. So we hope you'll come to the website, find out a little more about what we're about, and then contact us through that. That's the best way.
I want to thank all of our listeners to taking the time to listen to our first show of United We Spay. If you liked this episode, please be sure to share and subscribe. We'll be releasing a new episode each month, digging into important conversations surrounding spay-neuter throughout the U.S. and around the world. For more resources for spay-neuter or learn more about our work at unitedspayalliance.org, you just go to unitedspayalliance.org or get in touch with us at any time by emailing info@unitedspayalliance.org. Until next time.